Hi everybody, Gisele Grenier here from artplace.ca. For today's workshop for the Book of Backgrounds, we're going to continue on with collaging and we're going to introduce bleeding art tissue. So I've chosen my journal page now because I'm working on within the Strathmore Visual Journal that I've taken apart. Because there's words, you have to make sure I actually do this on the right side. Earlier on I did one that was upside down, so I'm going to work on here. And if you're very concerned about whatever you do on this, if you're concerned about getting onto here, get some wax paper, roughly just a little bit smaller than what you've got for your page, and then use green painter's tape or frog tape to tape it down. So I've got, no, let's do something first. I want to actually prepare this with a little bit of gesso because we're going to be doing collaging and I don't really want so much moisture to get into the paper. I want to use a sealer or gesso to create a barrier. Because we always, most of us have gesso on hand, I'm going to use that as well. That way the paint will actually just sit on top of the page and not get soaked into the paper. And I'm just going to take my large brush. I like the gesso at this point when the container is almost empty because the water evaporates a little bit and the gesso is nice and thick. And you notice I'm not putting on a perfectly smooth layer of gesso. I want this to be nice and rough. If you don't have gesso and you have sealer, put sealer on. If you don't have either one, put a few layers of titanium white acrylic paint or any type of white acrylic paint. Actually, it doesn't have to be white, whatever color you want. And you don't even have to go to the edge. I'm not going to go all the way to the edge because it's not necessary. And just like so. Okay, just going to put that in there. Close that down. Now I'm going to put this aside while I talk about the papers. So what I've done is I've got two aspects to this. You can go on the internet and you can purchase or legally download what's called free printables. And printables are from people that have made images, taken digital scans of their own vintage photographs and make them available for you either for free or you pay a fee for them. And all you have to do is go to like a search engine like Google and just type in free vintage printables or printable art or something like that, and you'll get links, a ton of links. So I just randomly picked a few and I got some really cool ones. And this is the same as this one because I use that for technique and I love that. You could also get fonts. If you go to, it's another one. If you go to free fonts and you can get really interesting fonts. I think freefonts.com is one that I use. Music paper. What I don't like about this one is it's really gray because this was actually a scan from an old vintage book. It's really gray, so it's a bit dark for printing. But these are really cool. Then you can get cutouts. And then I've got some vintage images here. I love Marie Antoinette stuff. Here's some really cool stuff. And here's some more. There's some more vintage stuff. So I figured I'm going to do something with this stuff here. Again, this is just a background, so we're not totally so concerned about the focus of the page. We just want to add something to the background. On the flip side as well, now we have some tissue. So this is tissue from sewing patterns, and you can take I wrote on this with a what? I believe I used a Staedtler, the water-soluble marker, the Staedtler ones. Then I sprayed the paper with a little bit of water to make it runny, to get that effect. This was actually for a mixed media class that I was teaching, which will be available as well, separate from the separate from the Bob and Doug project. And then there's bleeding art tissue. And bleeding art tissue means when this gets wet, the actual ink spreads out. Okay, so that's another option that you can use for tissues that you can collage. They are relatively transparent. I'm not a huge fan of using bleeding art tissue. Not a huge fan. I am going to demonstrate it, but I'm not a huge fan of it because I'm not so much into collaging with tissue. I love collaging with papers. Then you've got the regular white. With the regular white, there will be another video to show you how to make your own printed tissue, because I only have access to one style, and it is a little bit pricey, but I prefer creating my own styles of printed tissue because it always customized to me. If we were to take, well, let's just take a random page here, and you can basically tear the sheets up any way you want, and you just basically overlap them, okay? And you can collage it the same way we've always been doing our collaging. What I want to do is I want to take, ooh, this is going to be a good one. When you have the papers that actually split directly in half, that is awesome. You know what? This doesn't happen very often. It gets really, really transparent. What I'm going to do is randomly get a bunch of tears. Now I'm going to straighten this out. So I'm just going to go opposite. This is the way, very carefully, you do it with ribbon. It just straightens it out. I'm going to get some random tears. I'm not being specific on anything that I'm doing. I do want a focus on something, and this one actually looks really cool. I think I'm going to use that as my focus because I have 2 copies of it. And I'm going to use the birdie. I think I actually want to use this side because when I did the tear, it left this piece exposed. So I think I'm going to use that. When you tear towards you, you're going to get the tear this way. If you tear this way, okay, tear it towards you, you get a reveal of the paper underneath. Tear away from you, and you don't, okay? So if I wanted to get the reveal on this one, I would tear towards me. So whatever side you tear towards you, the opposite side is what's going to have that reveal. So I want it on this side. There we go. I'm not going to bother with music paper. Ooh, Maison Clement. Oh, that's my uncle's name. Let's use that. Actually, I want it this way. Lovely. Lovely. You can, and I like doing my pages torn because it makes it look a little bit more natural. I want to keep, so now I want the tear to be on this side, so I'm going to tear here. So you see what I mean? You get the paper exposed, and it distresses beautifully. So whatever side you want to have the tear show, okay, so if you want the tear to show on this side, okay, pull on this side. It's the opposite side. I don't want to do anything with that or that. I would love to do something. Actually, I'm reserving this for an image transfer that we're going to do. Let's keep that aside. Let's do this one here, not so much as a collage, but let's do a, I've heard the term fussy cut. Fussy cut, I think, is when you do these little intricate cuts. Let's just do this. Now, I used to provide actual copies and links of a lot of the stuff here. I tell people now, search on the internet, and because you need to read the terms of use for images, because sometimes the artist will change what you can use the images for. So far, everything I've used here at this time, it's legally allowed to do what I'm doing. So I used to put a link, and someone would come back to me and say, oh, now it says that I'm not allowed to do this, this, and this. So now I'm just telling you, just go and search and find it. But you can just And sometimes if I post links to websites, sometimes they change the page and the page then it comes up page not found, and I'm stuck with the link on the video. So it's best just to go to a search engine like Google or Bing and just type in free printables, free vintage printables, printable artwork, and always read the terms of use. Not going to need anything here yet. And because I'm using this as my base, let me get, if I want the tear to be on this side, I'm going to do this. See how I'm tearing that? This is actually the hardest part of the project. I don't want the tear to be completely straight. At the same time, I don't want it to look like mountains. You can keep these for something else as well. After a while, you end up accumulating so much, you sort of have to throw it away. So with this, and I can choose, okay? And then I will get my journal page and I will assemble it. And I like to do what's called dry fits. And the dry fits are basically assembling the stuff first and seeing how it lays out, so you can get an idea of, you know, what you want. Now, I'm looking at this now and it's landscape, but my page is portrait. So I have to think of that as well. And then once you've got it laid out, then you can take your papers and then you can collage papers on top. You can paint the papers in the beginning, you can paint this, you can do it at the end. It's wide open. You can do almost anything in the order that you do the work. I'm just going to show you a couple of different things. Let's paint some of this first. And the way that I like to paint it, I'm going to use... we haven't done anything with violets in a while. So I'm just going to get some ultramarine blue. And a speck of dioxazine purple, a speck of alizarin crimson, and I like working with everything next to each other on the color wheel when I do this technique. And you're going to miss the heck out of it. And some people will use sprays. That's fine. It doesn't matter really what you use. I am going to do a video on how to make your own sprays. And I'm just going to go right beside. There is blue and purple, so I don't care. And then I am going to rinse that out for the alizarin crimson. With the no stick craft sheet, you get some really interesting effects with this. Okay, I'm going to spray it a bit more. And then you can turn around, and I'm going to do this one first. I'm going to wet the paper, which will make it curl like a son of a gun, so don't worry about that. It also becomes transparent, and some areas are left without any paint, and I'm just going to put it right inside, like so. And as you drag, you'll get some almost like a tie-dye look. Okay, let's see if I can turn this without making a mess. Okay, oops, very heavy on the look. Then I can take my water mister and just, depending on where I want it, and then I should get my tweezers and I'll turn it around the other way. Be careful that you don't tear the paper. And then I'll spray just kind of like in the middle. And I'm not going to redip it. I'm going to keep spraying and spraying and spraying. What happened? And so that way I get a variation. Isn't that beautiful? Now the challenge is, you got to put it somewhere to dry, and I didn't prepare for that. Yikes. Okay. All right. off to the side I have a little laundry line in my studio, and I have like wax paper on the floor, and I can let this stuff dry that way. If you don't have access to that, which is totally normal, you basically just with a heat gun and you just dry it, you know, and you want to let the air be able to transfer around your piece to dry it the fastest. Then with all this stuff done, because now it's all mixed in with different colors, there's a lot of water in here, you can do some dripping like this. You don't have to do the whole thing. You can do this. You can take an area and do with a lot of water. Actually, it's easier if I just do it. If I just do it this way, get a little bit of water in there, just drag. Okay, just to stain it. Okay, you can do that. Now the other thing that you can do is, it's a shame that this is all going to be wasted. The other thing that you can do is basically paint it at the end, and that's one thing that I like doing because of the control. I can paint it at the end depending on how my piece is laid out. That's totally up to you. So I use my heat gun to dry this, and it's still damp, but it's good enough to go. And I've got this and I've got this. So that's just to show you the technique of how to do this. And now I want to assemble it. So if you didn't mind your page turning this way, this would be a much nicer way of doing it, like this. But you can still do it like this, where it's a background. It doesn't really matter. But it would have looked much nicer being this way. So let's just do this anyways, like that. Okay? So the page turns like this. So why don't we do this? We could do this, and then we could do this. The reason being is that we're going to be overlapping. What I'm doing right now, I'm just creating that torn edge back here, and we've got something here. I may end up using this, I may not. I'm not quite sure. Ooh, that's really pretty there, but you know what would be even nicer? Finding the original sheet and getting a much larger area. Did I not have more than that? Yeah, I did. And this is all about finding what works for you. I didn't want to use this part, but this might actually work out quite nicely. Yeah, this does. So let's work it where I have this word in here. So I'm just going to tear that. And this, I know exactly what color I'm going to stain it. If you want the torn edges to be inside, you're going to tear this. Otherwise, you're going to butt it right up against the border. That way it'll make it look like a seamless page, and then this torn edge would be right on top, okay, to make it look like that. So it'll make it look like this is actually part of the page, which is what I'm going to do. So this hard edge here, I'm going to have to make sure there's something else there. So which way does this go? It actually goes like this, so I can turn around. There we go. That's cool. And just build it up any way you want. You're just collaging, remember. This is the background. And I do want to use too big. I'll do that. I can even turn this upside down. And I can do a little bit here. Well, that actually works out quite nice. Like so. You want a little bit of contrast under there. Slip something else right there. I don't like that hard edge. And tear it. Okay, I do want this here. So I think I have an idea what I want to do with this. And oh, what else have we got? We got a few more things. Now this is where you can then take in what you want to do with yeah, that's kind of looking cool. Okay, I have enough to get started, so let's go back now. And now I'm just going to simply collage it. That's about where I'm going to go. The reason why I dry fit it first, because this is still a little bit damp, it'll tear quite easily. Where am I? Where's my... okay. Where's my... oh, I used it for the gesso. I use it for the gesso. So let me just get my goat hair brush. Large brush. And I'm just going to put... I don't want the collage medium to be so thin that it runs off the page and gets underneath, because it's the texture Fiero underneath, so I don't want it to ruin that. But at the same time, if I have it wet enough, I can move the page around right to the very outside edge. Get a nice seal in there. And if you add too much water, it weakens the glue. Now I have to be careful. This was printed on an inkjet, so I have to be careful how much moisture I put and how much rubbing I do on top. Okay. And I'm just going to put a little bit of a sealer right there. Just going to go over once. That'll just help set right into the paper. And let's see, I wanted this one over here. I think I wanted this one. I want to leave that name showing. Again, collage it any way you want. Paint it any way you want. This is just what I'm doing, just to show technique. And now I've forgotten where everything else went. I've forgotten. I think there was something here with this. I think there was something there. And then this kind of fit right here. I think. Okay. And I know I had my shoe. I don't want to cover any of this neat stuff here. I could cover that because Paris 1889, it can still work there. And if you did your painting with watercolors, spray it with fixative first, such as Spectrafix. Beautiful. Did I do something? Oh, you know what? I think I missed this. Was that there? I don't remember now. Oh well. So it might look a little bit different. See that tore? It might look a little bit different. I am not overly concerned whatsoever. Let's make that a nice straight piece there, like so. And again, this is, I'm not going to go through a tremendous amount with the collaging because I've covered that in a couple of videos so far. So I'm just going to lay it out because right now this is just technique that I'm showing you. Because we're going to be covering a lot of this up with the tissue. So it's where I'm showing you some with the areas that are painted and some where they're not. Just going to press that down. And I'm just going to double check to make sure. No, I'm good. I want, I can say I want anything. I want I do not want to cover that shoe. I can slip the shoe on top. There we go. Beauty. Let's get a punch of red in here. And that's it. Now we're going to put the decoupage, it's thinned down over the entire piece. A very thin layer. Do not make it thick. Now you can let it dry if you want at this point. We can move all this aside. That I'm going to keep. Now you can choose about putting your tissues down. So if I want to take a look at the blue, again, I'm not a fan of the tissue, so I'm not going to put it everywhere. I can put, I'll show you a couple of different things. Now I do have some tissue that's not bleeding art tissue, and some that is. Is this? I'm trying to think. You'll know when you, yeah, so this is the blue is now, some of the blue ink is coming off the paper. What I had originally gotten that for is I put the tissue down, took it up, and it left the ink on the page, which is a really, really neat effect. And I want to do this with paint. I can come in, let's get a, show you how when it layers. Okay, so the yellow paper over the blue paper makes it green. Very transparent. I prefer the rich, rich, rich colors myself. You could put that over there to layer that, but I don't want to lose that torn edge. So I can take a torn edge and we'll just go over a few transparent pieces, painted pieces. So you can see that. Okay. So the tissues that I'm choosing are next to each other on the color wheel. So the blues, what do I have? Blues and yellows. I don't want to cover that, so I can do it like this. And not only does it add color, it also adds texture, so you can wrinkle it as well. I'm pushing in carefully. If you find that it's just not sticking, just a little bit of decoupage over the whole thing, and it'll be good as gold. Some of the ink, see, some of the ink is coming off. I'm just going to spread that out a little bit. The darkest tissue, I guess you could reserve it for an area that you don't really like because it is very, very dark. So I've just got a really interesting shape here, and I'll just kind of put it in this corner. It's not really serving any purpose other than I just want to show you what it looks like. Look at the ink coming off that. Now I can turn around and I can stain the rest of the page. Look at that. See? That's what the bleeding art tissue. This page will take quite a bit of time to dry. I can still take stuff and layer it on top of this. So you can let each layer dry in collage, or you do everything at once and then so if you let each layer dry, let's say for like half an hour, and you've got 10 layers, well, you do the math, or you do everything at once, and it will still take that much time to dry. I just find that when you're doing everything at once, it just looks a little bit, it's fresher in your mind. That's just me. Transparent tissue. Over here. Okay. And where's my sewing tissue? I'm going to keep that zigzag. That really makes it look old. I love it with the transparent tissue. Transparent. Whoopsie, that's not going to work, Gisele. Go. And we're still going to paint on top of this. I have a big blank spot right there. I have a big blank spot right there. Where's my, there it is. There. I don't want to put decoupage on this because I want to show you the different look of painting over the plain paper versus the sealed paper. So this is sealed, the white areas are sealed, and that's going to be unsealed because I want to show you what it looks like. And you could just keep adding more collage material if you want. So I can just, you know, build it up as much as you want. And if you want to knock it down a bit, this is where you would add the white tissue. Like I said, I'm not a fan of the brightly colored papers. That's just me. But I can tone it down with some white. Painting apron definitely comes in handy when doing this, because I'm always wiping my hands on my clothes. And that's pretty diffused now. Let's bring this one in. Let's bring this one in. Let's just overlap that. And hopefully it'll be transparent enough. When you want to print the printables, if you're using for collage, print them on the cheapest paper you have. I don't think that's going to be transparent enough to show what's underneath. So, I already know that that sewing tissue is too opaque because I lost a lot of the words because it was faint. We'll use this part to paint something and then we'll just put it on top. Just have to get the side I want it to, yeah, that's pretty good, so I'll leave that. I'm going to put this aside now. It won't dry too much, it'll tack up, but let's paint this. Move all this out of the way. All these little bits and pieces still going to hang on to that because I can use them for something else. What vintage color do we want today? Well, you know what? I'll never go wrong with transparent red iron oxide. I do have quinacridone burnt orange, which I love. A bit of water. This is very, very delicate paper, so just be careful how much rubbing you do on it. And now it's invisible. Okay, get a couple more pieces. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I'll just, like, see how it's crinkled? I'll let it dry like that. There's I've done this technique using, there's this, oh, and forgive me, I don't even remember the name of it. This Delusions ink, it's a really bright orange. Really, 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 really pretty. Let's try crinkling that up. With acrylics, you couldn't do this and leave it. With watercolors, you can do this and leave it, and it'll dry up really, really, really cool. Acrylics, you might actually, this paper's way too delicate for that. And we'll let it dry. We'll let it dry like that. Because it has a sealer built into it, it will be very rough. You can do this with fabric, with So Soft acrylics. Those are really pretty. Oh, I'm going to leave that like that with that little bit showing. Okay. And let's stain a little bit of sewing paper. So I'll paint the paper first, then collage it, and I'll show painting it directly onto the page. Ah, darn. All right. Make sure to clean that up really well. Bring the page back. Ah, it's stuck. Another journal page. All right, this now, we're going to let everything dry because if this is full of decoupage, if I just put this onto this and the paint is just going to suck out of this and go right into here. So I'm going to let this dry till it's dry to touch. Okay, I already see that it's starting to get matte, so it is drying out. And when we come back, then we'll start building the page, and then we'll put a wash of color over the whole thing. So this is relatively dry to touch now, and all these pieces are dry. Excuse me. So what I want to do is show you these pieces now. They're not as transparent as they were because we have paint on there, even though it's transparent red iron oxide. And this is the sealer part of the acrylic that causes it to stick. I could either tear it or just gently pull it. Okay, so you see the white here, or maybe I should show you here. If you place it over, oh, you know what? Here, there we go. So that's what you're going to end up getting. Okay, and remember here, wasn't sure when this was dry because it hid, so I put this. Look how transparent it became. This is the sewing paper. Look how beautiful that is. So let's see, this is how that would look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece, or some of the pieces, I'm going to put them over here, but this area here, I'm actually going to paint on top of, just to show you additional techniques. So we'll just mix that up. And I'm just going to be a little bit more selective where I'm going to put this. And I want to try to get something up here. Okay, so there we go. So I'll put this here. Okay, and this one here is really, really soupy. I'll put this here. Nope, can't do that. That's too thick. Leave that piece. I'm going to leave that piece wrinkled. I'll have to put some decoupage over that. I have to make sure I wipe my hands because this is going to create a skin. I had to clean my hands with even the 1000 Plus stain remover didn't quite remove it. I had to use a kitchen, you know, those kitchen sponges that have the scrubby on the one side. So what you don't want is this to actually pull up. So you need to make sure you get enough medium to saturate the paper, especially if it's going to be used as a base, because you're going to be creating stuff on top of this. The wrinkles are fine. Just make sure that there's medium on both sides to make contact. And these projects are great for kids. Just be aware that this stuff, if it dries like this, it creates a skin, and you do have to scrub a bit to get it off. This is a beautiful piece here. What I'm going to overlap this one here, so I shouldn't have to actually add anything to it. So we can see what the layer, the additional layer will create. Let's pop that here. Oh, let's throw that in here. I'm going to use up all the little bits and bobs. I will take a baby wipe now, fresh, and I'll go back over this. You can see the ink from that. This is where I'm going to actually paint. Alright. What color shall we pick today? Let's go with something different. Let's take transparent yellow iron oxide. And I'm going to get some quinacridone burnt orange after. And then I can come in and I'm just going to paint over this. Excuse me. And you can really fluff this up. Now, this is what I want to show you with the torn paper. It really attaches itself to the edges. And that's what makes it look so beautiful. You get some beautiful effects with that. You see it here. See, that's where that torn paper is. Gorgeous. Now, transparent yellow iron oxide over the blue tissue, because it's bleeding tissue and the ink is coming off, the dye, is that it is going to mix and create something green. So I'm just going to come here and I'll do a little bit. See? It creates a green, which is still lovely. You just layer it. Look at that texture. And you see how I'm kind of moving it around? And I'm getting this really rough look. And what's happening is that where it's that rough look is, it's where there's paper, there's little bits of wrinkles, and the brush is making contact with the parts that are raised like this. So, okay. If you really wanted to smooth that out, you can take a mop brush or just wipe it off a little bit. Here, like this, see? That's where it's making the contact. If you don't like those hard lines, really push the brush into there and spread everything out. See? There we go. That's one layer of color. I'm going to let this dry for a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to add in some quinacridone burnt orange. This is dry now. This is soaking wet, and as I was making it flat to make sure there were no air bubbles, I ripped off a little piece here, and I'm thinking I'm liking the blue. Now, this may be a little bit too much color, but I'm going to let it dry just to give it a fair shake. And now the quinacridone burnt orange. Now there's enough layers on here that sealed everything, because now I'm going to basically do a dry brush. If the paper is very wet from collage, then you can't. You have to wait for it to dry. But if it's a little bit damp due to the paint, then you're okay. If it's wet from collage, it means it hasn't glued down yet. You may actually tear the paper. And I'm thinking this may be a little bit... Oh, there we go. It's all right. And I'm just going to dry brush. It's maybe a little bit too intense. I'm not sure. I love dry brushing. I love dry brushing because I do a lot of that when I do pet portraits. You don't have to do this. I'm just showing you techniques. How you take those techniques and apply it to your own art is completely up to you. Going on where the paper's torn at the edges, and it just picks up the paint right away. Ooh. Have a baby wipe available as well, so you can just quickly, like, you know, do a little bit of dressing if you want, like that. See that? Like so. Don't go back over while it's wet though. You have to let it dry. And let's see how far I can go down before I hit that tissue. I'm having second thoughts about this now, because I'm liking the contrast of the blue and it's been lost. So I'll go as far as I'm going to go, by then I'll decide whether I want to take some of it off. I love that. You don't have to do this. You can if you want. I'm just going to wipe down a little bit of that. Oh, you know what? No, I'm not. when I make it even stronger. But I don't like that. Just going to even that out a little bit. There we go. I just wanted to break that up a little bit more. And, oh, I don't have any paper towel. I don't have any paper towel. There we go. Now taking this, watch this. As I do the same technique, it just grabs on the edge of the paper. And that's where we did the tear. And you can use this to basically just age the edges of the paper. Okay. Yeah, might be a bit late for that now. Maybe just put on a little bit too much. Let's see if we can remove it. There we go. It was just a little bit too much of the tissue. I won't remove it all though. I wanted more blue to show. So with a baby wipe, I'll just go over, remove what I can. I also covered up my shoe. There we are. I'm going to leave these little bits here. This is much better. You'll still be able to see technique-wise what the layering looks like. That's better. Now I can take, let me go in with some quinacridone gold. And burnt sienna. Now burnt sienna, I lied over here, is the opaque version of, well, not the opaque version, it's transparent red iron oxide and burnt sienna are almost the same, except one's more transparent than the other. Dirty brush, I'm just going to go into this one here. This is the quinacridone gold. And I'm going to go back over. I'm going to go a little bit further in, but not all the way. Then what I'm going to do is with the burnt sienna, then just do the burnt sienna around the edges. But I'm contemplating if I want to basically add a little bit of burnt umber to make it look even darker. If you guys have used a lot of the, I can only refer to this one because this is the one that I know. The Tim Holtz Distress Pads Vintage Photo. If you want to use paint, you would use burnt umber, or better yet is to use burnt sienna, 2 parts burnt sienna, 1 part of ultramarine blue, and it's amazing. Now if I take this quinacridone gold, watch how dark it looks when you go over the blue. Every layer that you add on, it gets darker and darker and darker. So just keep that in mind. That's still wet. I can't do anything there. I can do a little bit here. I probably should go to a finer brush so I don't do more dry brushing because the collage is still a little bit wet. So let me, yeah, see that some of the paper's coming off. So if you wanted to follow the same technique, let this dry. Not taking long at this point. This has maybe another half hour while it's dry to the touch. That's looking really, really nice. There is enough where I can work down here. You can lay the paint down while this is wet. That's fine. I'm just doing this to actually save some time. And now I'm going to take my, if I want to lay that paint down. I want to lay the paint down, but I want to be able to rough it up. Let me just hit this with the heat gun for a sec. If I lay the paint down where I'm going to vintage up the edges, antique the edges, the flat brush really isn't going to do what I want. I like doing that with the number 8 Bristle Bright, and I also like doing it with a fan brush. Whoopsie, it's drying out and it's sticking to my fingers. A little bit of water. I'm going to get some blue in there. Burnt sienna, speck of ultramarine blue with that wonderful sound. Still not quite dark enough. A little bit more blue. Let's get some quinacridone gold in there. Ooh, there we go. Oh, that's even nicer than using blue and burnt sienna. Oh man. And it's transparent on top of that. Lovely. Oh, and you need a baby wipe. Have a couple ready on the ready. So I'm going to do this way. So now when I do up the edges, I very quickly then come in and just pad. And you can pad as much as you want. And I use a fan brush because I don't get a straight line, which would usually result if you were using a flat brush. I can take the fan, I can just make sure I get all the nice edges this way. I'm doing this just to kind of add extra little seal there. And if you put glazing medium on first and then did this, oh, the light that would shine through, there'd be a lot of drying time involved in that though. But see how the page is getting aged more and more and more? You can choose just to wipe out a certain area like so. It's key just to get a bit too much paint, but I'll be able to wipe some of that off. The whole key is just to make it as rough as possible. I need to tape down my mat. Can I still use? Yep. It's not much wiping needed here. I'm just going to basically do a little bit on the edge here. Get some nice contrast going. And you see how that just makes it look a little bit old, almost like an old treasure map. The rougher the better. This is a little bit too bright for me. Just dry brushing everything. And then just patting it. I need to go to a clean baby wipe. Beautiful. Beautiful. I want this with this area. Where is it? Transparent red iron oxide. I can go with the same brush. Transparent red iron oxide. Mega bright. It turns green. Look. Greenish, orangey. And when you overlap everything like this, it looks like everything just kind of fits into place. And if you want to come in and do a wash, come back, remove a bit, and basically just build it up and build it up and build it up and build it up. How beautiful is that? Isn't that gorgeous? I find that Paris though is sticking out just a little bit too much, so you know what I'm going to do? I do have a video coming up for this, and I want to show you. You're going to see right close up my treasure box. This is my treasure box of all stuff, homemade stamps and stuff like that. I've actually cut this down quite a bit. So this is a box that I got. This is Mastro extra virgin olive oil, and it came with these things here, the dividers, and I'm actually going to use that to create stuff when we do our jelly printing. So anything that is stampable or stencilable, I'm going to use, put in that box. So can I do something with this? No. Ah. But I bet you I can with this. I'm going to get another number 8 Bristle Bright. I will go in with transparent red iron oxide. You know what? I'm going to have to grab a little bit of quinacridone burnt orange. There's not enough. And I'm not going to lift it up yet, so I'm going to distress it. Now this is chipboard, so it is very thick. And let me just get my heat gun just to dress this, just dry it a little bit faster, and then we'll be done. Fresh baby wipe. Here we go. Isn't that cool? And the reason why I did that, because I wanted to pull it and I didn't want to go past that line to lose that tag. I could also, if I want to put something here like so, and I'll go with this burnt umber mixes that I made. Make a subtle line there, and I can choose another one like this. This will be almost invisible because it's already very dark. With that water. And I have one last surprise. Joe's gonna kill me, because I believe this video is much longer than an hour. Now this stuff here, you actually, now where's the, oh, I don't have the paper. This is a wax finish. You can seal this with Duraclear, I think. This is a wax finish. Now, I should have paper towel to do this, and I don't. Uh-oh. Let's see what happens. Do I have, this is pretty dry. Because I don't want to contaminate, because I've got, this is kind of dirty, but it's dry. I don't want to go into like this. I'm going to take from here and go here. I do not want to contaminate what's in here. And all you do, it's a rub. You apply it and then buff it. And the beauty with this on wrinkled paper, holy smokes, Batman. It totally rocks, because all it does is it catches the wrinkles. And if you press really hard, you can fill all the paper in. Now, how much you put on is totally up to you. It is wax based, so I can remove it with a wet baby wipe if I put too much. See how easy that is? That's the beauty with this stuff, is that you're left, you're not really committed to the final outcome. And I want to go too overboard with this. I just ran this paper over that, didn't I? Oh, yeah. Look at that. Now, this one I'm using is iced espresso. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, and I'm getting a little too excited about this, right? Kind of pushing into the paper that's there to catch the outlines. Right here. Beauty. Oh, look at that. A word of warning. Make sure that your page, if you are collaging, that it's dry. Because with the amount of rubbing and buffing you have to do, might remove some of the, or you might shift the collage. I'm just going to do this just a little bit. I'm not going to buff very hard because this is still a little bit damp, but it is a technique I just want to show you because I'm getting the cue to speed it up and finish up. Beauty, 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 beauty. There we go. So how's that? Not too much. It's just enough. I used to do this technique with the Krylon leafing pens. Now I don't need to. There we go. How gorgeous is that? So beautiful. So, so beautiful. And now, with this page being done, I would just basically, once it's, I'm going to leave that to sit for about 24 hours. Then I'm going to give it a coat. I can either put the decoupage matte finish on this, okay, or I can use a Duraclear matte finish. Depends on how much more work I want to do. The Duraclear is more of a final varnish type of thing, but I have done work where I've done it in between the layers. So for you though, you'd probably be better off just using the medium as your final, just to kind of set everything in. And I'm going to, knowing I'm going to be putting more on, I would use the matte. But if this was basically my final page, which, you know what, this does look like a final journal page, because this basically the focus is on Paris, I would put a Duraclear satin varnish on this. Okay, not gloss, but satin or matte. Beautiful. So we've got this on this side. So in your journal page, you're going to go from here to here. Isn't that beautiful? So there we go. So I really hope that you enjoyed this project, and I hope that you give it a try. This was so much fun. And in the upcoming video, I'm going to show you how to do make your own stamped tissue paper. We're also going to be doing some spraying and collaging with feathers. Exciting? I'm excited. Anyways, so join me next time, and until then, stay inspired.